Well, last week, a state panel finished revising the financial impact statement that will appear on the November ballot, along with the proposed constitutional amendment on abortion rights. Financial impact statements are required to be posted on the ballot to provide the estimated effects of proposed amendments on government revenue and the state budget. Representatives of Governor Ron DeSantis' office and the Florida House pushed to include information in the statement that could persuade voters to reject the measure. In part, the statement says there is uncertainty about whether the amendment will require the state to subsidize abortions with public funds. Litigation to resolve those and other uncertainties will result in additional costs to the state government and state courts that will negatively impact the state budget. An increase in abortions may negatively affect the growth of state and local revenue over time. Because of that language, amendment supporters are accusing the panel of a dirty trick to mislead voters. Michael, that statement, at least to me, seems pretty vague. And I'm wondering, is this typical of financial impact statements? Because it has no numbers in it. It doesn't say it's going to cost X number of dollars.
Yeah, the financial impact statements on ballot measures are usually pretty anodyne. They're usually not that controversial. This has caught a lot of attention, especially with the advocates for the ballot measure, because it brings up this idea that because of this uncertainty, there's going to be a financial impact to the state. And in pretty strong words, they're saying, they're insinuating that because of the assumption that Medicaid is going to pick up some of the costs, that there's going to be litigation that's going to arise out of that. And with that, you know, the state's going to have to pick up the bill. Whatever that is, though, nobody really knows. The state economist, Amy Baker, she decided not to sign on to that, and she said that she thought of this as more of a political statement than an objective analysis of what voters should need to know when they go to the voters' booth. This could be challenged. The advocates are thinking about challenging that language. They don't have a lot of time, but we'll see how that develops in the next week. Yeah,
and Julie, the advocates are going to the Florida Supreme Court. They are going to challenge the language. What do you make of the language, and what do you make of the challenge?
Well, I think it's important that we are putting in their language that people can understand that there will be consequences. And that's the reason why it has to be just the best possibly explained. I think it's going to be a good.
Judith Ann, how about you? What do you think of the financial statement language?
I think it is outrageous and incredibly misleading. The issue of whether Medicaid would need to fund abortions is something that the U.S. Supreme Court had litigated back contemporaneously with the Roe decision. So back in the 1970s, the U.S. Supreme Court had ruled neither states nor the federal government, per the Hyde Amendment, needed to publicly fund abortion. So that, when I saw that, I was like, this is out of left field. Like, what do you mean there's going to be litigation about this issue? Like, this issue is a settled issue. It's about the people who passed the legislation about the 6-week abortion ban, don't want that ban overturned, and they don't want it to go to the voters in a clear way. So,
Patrick, some of the language in there says that by having access to abortion, it may cost the state more money, a loss of revenue.
Yeah, it actually should have been the other way. What we've seen in Texas, and there's been studies, is that when you take away abortion access, that the amount of babies born with birth defects increased because, of course, they weren't aborted early on. And so you had a 21.6% increase in the state of Texas for kids born with genetic and severe birth defects. And the public is picking up that tab for these kids to die in their first year, but in the hospital. And so the reality is that if they did their job, they would have found out that this bill is likely to save taxpayers money in the long run.
Okay.